Hello everyone, welcome to this week's webinar. Super excited to be talking to you today, and we'll be talking about animations in Unity. Woohoo! So first things first, what is an animation? In Unity, the animation could be defined as a sequence of events that take place over time. So think of it as an example that we're looking at right here. You could have different models, different characters. In this case, I have something called the Earth, and I'll show you exactly how I did this. It was a weekend. I went a little bit crazy. I created 2 moons around the Earth. I know it's not scientifically correct, but as you know, Unity is really your canvas. It's your opportunity to create something unique, something that expresses you in a very interesting way, and basically let your imagination go wild. So in this case, I just created 2 moons around the Earth, and I have some kind of a ground setting set up here. I have basically a plane. Don't worry about the color. You can have later on things like trees, lakes, and all that. But basically the main concept that I want to describe to you today is animations and how do you set them up. You could have simple animations, which are basically changing the position of an object over time. You can maybe change the rotation of an object over time, as we'll do now. You can change maybe the brightness of a color over time. You can really have some complicated animations, and the one that I pulled together right here is basically a very simple one. You have the Earth, you have the 2 moons, and you also have the camera being positioned in different locations. So basically there are 2 animations happening here. One is the Earth is rotating around its axis, north-south pole axis, and also the camera is giving us a different perspective. So I'll be showing you guys how to do this, and let's have some fun. So I'll stop this play button. Just to get you super excited about this, in case you're not already. Animations are really powerful in Unity, and the best way to start is by researching or Googling Unity animations, and you'll be brought to the documentation for animations. A really good place to start is the animation view within Unity. This, I would say, it's a complementary to what you've learned in the nanodegree so far, what you've learned from Udacity so far. If you really want to complement it, it's a good idea. I highly recommend it. And again, Udacity, the virtual reality nanodegree in Udacity, it's one of the most interesting ones. I've taken quite a few so far, and I'm really excited about this among many others. So I'll minimize this tab for now. And just to get you super excited, as I mentioned, let me show you a few more other animations. So in my projects folder, I will show you something simpler here. I'll hit the play button. So for many of you who might have seen this scene, this is the apartment scene within the virtual reality nanodegree. And I have a globe here, and this is an event trigger animation. If I click somewhere, you'll see the globe rotating, and if I click somewhere else, it will stop. So that's one animation, very simple one. So this is an island scene. You might have already seen it so far from your course, and the animation here is, if you click on it, you can look around, seagulls flying around. There's a lightning here, and the animation is if you click somewhere, you'll see that lightning changing position, also brightness and color of brightness. So basically this is me trying to animate the sun setting down an extremely fast pace in a super realistic other dimensional world. But again, Unity allows you to do that, so it's amazing. And the last thing that I wanted to show you, just to get you super excited about this, is the final project that I did for this nanodegree right here. So this is amazing. You might have seen this as one of your capstone projects in virtual reality nanodegree. I'll hit the play button, and as you can see here, there's a little spaceship. I'll go closer to it, landing here. Yes, it's landing, has its own fuel system here, its own exhaust, its own electric or magnetic energy. There's a flag here. If you're a big fan of Star Trek, I am. You'll see it floating. There's some other objects going on here. But in case you didn't see it yet, if you look up in the sky, yep, that's a huge spaceship. That is a big spaceship. So that's beautiful. But in the end of it, what I want you to take away is that this is basically a collection of animations running on different objects. So that's the beauty of it. I'll pause this and let's get started with our first animation. Okay, perfect. So I'm back. I want you to see how my setup is. That's important. So on my left side, I have the hierarchy tab. In the middle, I have the scene, the game, and something called Asset Store tab that we'll be interacting with. On the right, I have the inspector. At the bottom, I have the project and the console. So really, as I explained before, the way that I imported this earth-looking material is really going to the asset store, and let's do that right now. So if I research for asset store, Unity asset store, you'll be brought up to Unity's asset store. You'll need to create an account. I highly recommend you doing that. And literally what I did for this project was type solar system, hit enter. In this case, I was looking for something free, so I went to the price tag, I filtered all the way down, I hit apply, and I was brought up with these 6 options. Looking around, I think I selected this one because it had the highest number of ratings. I took a quick look, looked pretty impressive. I was able to tell it had a low, medium, and high resolution texture and mesh. That's good to know. And then it had a simple clip here of how it looks like. So the way I did that was from the asset tab here, I logged into Unity. Once I did that, I was brought up under this on my assets folder, and there was a new option called Planet Earth, and that one had different materials, textures, models, prefabs. So what I did basically, I created the ground setting, a simple ground here, a plane, a box, a simple sphere, and what I did is I wrapped my Earth with this Earth 1K material. Let's start by seeing exactly how I did this. So this is my Earth object. It has 2 objects underneath it, basically moving as the Earth moves or rotating as the Earth rotates. So what I did was I selected Earth. Right now everything is pretty static, the Earth is not really revolving. I went under the window option, animator. Sorry, window option, animation. We'll look at the animator pretty soon. And this is a tab for animation. I can dock it wherever I want, I can size it, I can rescale it, and so forth. So what we're looking at here is what is called the animation window, and this is basically the way that you start an animation in Unity. Due to time constraint for this video, I won't delve into each step. I will giving you a quick guide of how I approach this problem, and next week maybe we can take a deeper dive on how this really took shape. Once I select an object, I can create, let's see, for example, for the box, I can create a clip. It will redirect me to create a name. I can name it something. In this case for Earth, I named it rotate animation. Once I do that, I can add multiple properties. I can add transformation property, a position, scale property, and different objects. For this one, I simply played with the rotation property. Before we get any deeper, let me explain to you what we're looking at. So at the animation tab, we have a preview. We have a recording option, and you'll see that here on the right we have a timeline of different. This is basically how things are evolving with respect to time in Unity. We can have what are called multiple keyframes, which is basically an instance in time that define how our objects are positioned, oriented, transformed, scaled, and all that. So basically within each keyframe, within each instance in time, I can have my object appear a specific way. And that what will happen is Unity in between will interpolate. So basically if if I wanted my Earth to move from point A to point B, I'd have a keyframe in point A in time, and then maybe 10 seconds later I'd have another keyframe in point B. And what Unity would do is interpolate that in between motion and animation. I can fine-tune it. If I go to the curves tab, there are two tabs. One is called Dope Sheet, the current one we're looking at. There's another one called Curves tab, where you can do your fine-tuning. But for now, let's start with the Dope Sheet. There's another option called here samples. The lower this number is, the slower your animation will be. So this is how many frames you have per second. Then underneath here you have your different rotations. As you'll see here, I can drag this rotation, and in the beginning I have my X rotation is 23 degrees to the right. This is, if you Google it, if you remember your geography classes, Earth with respect to its X-axis rotate actually 23.5 degrees. And then what I want is over time, I want my Y rotation, again my Y rotation, to change. So I start with a positive value, I go to negative 60 value, I go to negative 120. So basically you can go, I think I went here in incrementals of 60 degrees all the way to 360. You can just avoid this. You can go all the way from 0 to 360. I went multiple steps just so you can see how things look. There's an option here called Play the Animation Clip. If you click on it, it will animate this clip that we're looking at. So you'll see that X-axis, there's nothing really rotating. Z-axis, there's nothing really rotating. And also you can look here at the inspector that position is the same, rotation is the same for X and Z-axis, but Y-axis is really rotating from 0 to negative 60, negative 180, 120, 180, 240, and 360 degrees. The moons, the question is, why are the moons rotating, right? I just did a rotation, an animation for the Earth. So remember, the moons are sub-objects, basically belong to the Earth model as a category. So really, basically, whatever happens to my Earth model or my Earth object, the same thing will happen at the sub-objects that's underneath it. So that's good to know. I'll pause it for now. Another option that you can create your animation is to record something. So if you click the record button, and let's say if you move the Earth from point A to point B, Unity will create your keyframes and your transition in between. So that's another way to do it. So yeah, this is what I want to talk to you about, the specific animation. If you pay attention, under the main camera I also have something called position and rotation animation, and I did that so that I could have my camera move a little bit closer, higher up, and then a little bit to the left. And if you can see in the camera preview over here, you see how it looked like in the end. This was a little bit more involved because I wanted a specific view. Think of it as this is like the director's perspective, like directing a movie, and how do you want to look? How do you want your scene to look like? How do you want the car chase scene to look like? Or maybe like a fighting scene or some kind of romantic scene. It's up to you. I'll stop it for now, and I'll click again on Earth, and I'll talk a little bit about now the animator window. So this is the animation. This will create our animations. If we want to fine tune it, we can go to the curves and see how things look like. So this is how my revolution looks like of axis of Earth around this X-axis. If I wanted my my rotate something as well on the Y-axis, I can do that as well. This is completely draggable. So if you wanted some kind of a weird rotation, there you go, where Earth rotates around itself as well. You can do that as well. If you right-click on a keyframe, you can have something called free smooth, flat, broken. If you do free smooth, basically Unity allows you to really go free smoothing and the curve. So you'll see here how the rotation looks like. So you have something like, whoa, kind of interesting looking. I'll undo that for now, Control Z a few times, and I'm back to where I was. Another option that you can do within Unity is if you want some kind of a smooth transition, I highly recommend if you right click on an object and if you go to both tangents and if you click on linear, basically that will make the tangent linear, that will make your entire curve smooth. And you can do this for multiple keyframes at a time. You can move them, I'll undo that. You can also select multiple of them and right click and under tangents select linear, so that will make all the tangents linear for all your keyframes. Now let's go back, let's talk a little about this animator. So this clip that we created called rotate animation, what I will do is create something called rotate animation clip within the animator window. Okay, so we have the animation window, we have the animator window. So in the animation window is where we create different clips. In the animator window, now we move towards more of that director role, as I mentioned before in my scene. So animation is multiple little animations stitched together. I can create as many of them as I want. And the animator is when I really want to see how they go together. So this is basically a state machine. A state machine is basically a collection of states that you have an entry point. You have, based on a certain condition, you can move to another state, and based on another condition, you can go to an exit state. You can have many states here, and the important thing to remember is that a state basically corresponds to an animation. So this is my rotate animation clip here that we created before, and you can see here that if I go to Earth, I have an animator, and for the clip that I created, there was a controller called Earth1 in this case that was attached to this object. So this is how I know that this object Earth is basically not constant. It has an animator object attached to it, it has a controller, and let's look at that controller, how it looks like. So that controller is right here, Earth1, and for my rotation clip that I created, there's something called, there's a clip called rotate animation. I can select here how, there's something called loop time. If you leave it checked in, that will basically loop as long as I play the scene. So if you notice when I played this in the beginning, the Earth just kept rotating. If I uncheck this and if I click play, basically the Earth will revolve around itself and then it will stop. So for the sake of time, I'll pause it here. But this is how you basically differentiate between periodic animations and a one-time animation. So this would be one time. I want this periodic to happen consistently, so that's why I'm checking it. These are the main topics I wanted to talk about. I know that we went a little bit too far, but again, this is just a demo. I wanted to get you super excited. I'm looking forward to the next session where we'll be diving into how do I create these keyframes, what are some best practices, how do I keep it so that how do I keep perspective smooth so that somebody looking at this thing doesn't get dizzy or it's too fast, things like that. But really, I just wanted to get you super excited and hope to see you again next week. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's webinar.